Hello, my name is Zainab Hanslod and I'm here at Exchange Coffee in Blackburn. And I'm here to interview Aneesa Hussain, who had a stem cell transplant in 2013. Hi Anie, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
So tell me, why did you end up needing a stem cell transplant?
So I'll take you back to when I was 17, and I'm 29 now, so quite a long time ago. So when I was 17, in around August time, so in between year 12 and 13, sixth form, I just started getting like the worst headaches ever, just terrible migraines. They just wouldn't go away. I was someone that, you know, I never took paracetamol, and I was somebody that was taking cocodamol almost 4 times a day. I was going to sleep for about 17 hours a day, waking up, brushing my teeth, and then falling asleep again. It just wasn't me at all. I was somebody that used to go, you know, to theatre classes. I used to, you know, have dinner with my friends, go out constantly, and then all of a sudden, you know, walking to the bus stop, which was a 10-minute walk away, used to feel like I was running a marathon or something. Do you know, like when you feel your heart, you know, beating in your fingertips and you're just so out of breath and your muscles just ache? I just thought there must be a reason, but obviously being a ridiculous teenager, I was like, oh, it's because I've not done enough exercise, which is ridiculous. And then another symptom is that I ended up with bruises all over my body, but for no reason, like I'd not been kickboxing or anything. And I would wake up and I had blood blisters on the insides of my mouth. I would brush my teeth, and then for some reason my gums would bleed, and not just a little bit. I would look in the mirror and then 5 minutes later they'd still be bleeding. I looked really like ghost pale, like so white. My granddad's even looked at me one time and was like, "What? Like you look really, really ill." So I was really grateful. My dad forced me to have a blood test. I absolutely hate needles. So yeah, he forced me against my will. Obviously the best thing that he could have done. Had a blood test at 3 p.m. on the Friday. They told me, if there's anything to worry about, you'll hear about it. You'll hear back from us on Wednesday. If everything's fine, you just won't hear back from us. I mean, so many people get ill and it's absolutely nothing. So I just went back to bed thinking, I'll be absolutely fine. It's just me, you know, being a drama queen. I just need to rest more or whatever. Or I'm just so unfit. And then at 3 o'clock in the morning that night, we got a knock at the door and a doctor in a car with blue flashing lights telling us that I needed to go to hospital now. And I remember being absolutely so frightened, but at the same time just so relieved. You know, finally there was a reason for why I was feeling so rubbish. You know, I hadn't made it all up in my head like, oh, maybe someone will give me a solution for, you know, my tiredness constantly. And I went to hospital that night. I sat in a hospital room whilst they did loads of blood tests, whilst I had loads of scans, and I was terrified. You know, I was a 17-year-old and I didn't understand what on earth was going on. And then all of a sudden, at 3 p.m. that next day, which was a Saturday, I had a doctor sit next to me. My dad was holding my hand. My mum was in the corner choking back tears because she clearly knew that something was wrong, and I was told that I had blood cancer. Honestly, the films have it exactly word for word correct. Like, I heard the word cancer and I didn't hear anything else. All I thought was, oh my God, I'm going to die. And then I fast forward a few months, I had chemotherapy, I had antibody treatment, and everything kind of failed. It was then that they told me that the only hope that I had and my only, you know, the only solution, the only way that I could survive was if I would have a stem cell transplant.
And what is the process? What exactly is stem cell?
Yeah, so as someone who's not a biologist or a scientist, stem cells are like these there's these incredible cells that live in our bone marrow that create all the blood components that we have. And for someone who has blood cancer or a blood disorder, those stem cells aren't working properly. So the process is literally just giving someone, a healthy donor, giving their stem cells, some of them, to someone with a blood disorder or cancer. Yeah, the process itself, 90% of people who donate, who are on the register, they donate through, it's called peripheral blood stem cell donation, which is the hardest word in the world to say. And it's literally like, do you know when you see people donating blood, they have like a cannula in one arm and the blood goes in a little chamber. For stem cell donation, the blood is whizzed in this almost weird machine. The stem cells are taken out and the rest of the blood components are given back to the donor. So they don't lose anything, essentially. And then 10% of cases donate through the bone marrow, and that's something that, that requires general anaesthetic. And they usually use the bone marrow method for, I think, children and people who just, it's a bit complicated to donate.
And Annie, could you please tell me how the Anthony Nolan register works?
Yeah, so signing up to the Anthony Nolan register is the most incredible thing that anyone can do. Might be biased, but yeah. So the register works through just signing up online or through a form, and then you just write down your details, and what you need to do, the first step, is kind of like how we had during the COVID times. You take a swab and you just rub it on the inside of your cheek. You send it off, and then you probably won't hear back unless you are a match for somebody. So unless somebody who has a blood disorder or blood cancer needs a transplant and your swab cells have matched closely with them, you'll then get a phone call, and then you're needed, they give you a blood test to see, if you're actually a good enough match. And then the next step is going on to donate the stem cells.
So Annie, that must mean that there is a matching donor for everyone who needs a stem cell transplant.
Well, in theory that would be amazing, but the problem is that there's just not enough people on the register. And as somebody who was diagnosed in a teenage cancer unit, I saw so many people have incredible matches, which was amazing, but I saw so many people who should be here today who aren't, because they weren't able to find those matches, which is why it's so important for us to sign up. Because, in order to have a really successful transplant and in order to survive, you need a really good match. So I just urge people to sign up to the register, because it's just really important and you can save a life.
And Annie, could you please remind us how long it took for you to find your match?
Yeah, so it was a long, old slog. I was diagnosed in September, and then in December we started looking on the UK register, so that's like 3 months. And then I was on the register for at least 9 months, and when we started to look worldwide and still, was struggling. And during that time that I was ill, I was like losing loads of weight. I was down to 5 stone, which is absolutely crazy. And another thing that I think people don't seem to realise is that during that period when you're waiting for a match, you have such a low immune system, you're so weak, and you're just so susceptible to so many infections. And I know so many people that unfortunately haven't made it because during that period of waiting, they've just been hit with awful infections and their body's just not been strong enough. And if we have enough people on the register, if some of my friends who were on the register who were waiting for a recipient for 3 months had managed to find that donor, then maybe they, weren't at risk of getting every other infection under the sun, and maybe they could have made it.
I've read somewhere that there's a need to recruit more men onto the register. Why is that the case?
Yeah, I don't know why they make such good donors, but men actually only make 16% of the Anthony Nolan UK register. But they still account for more than half of, the donor transplants. So if you know any young men out there, please urge them to sign up, because they honestly make the best donors.
And what's your message to our community in regards to stem cell transplants and the register itself?
For our community, one of the most important things is to sign up to the register, because there just really is a lack of donors from ethnic minority backgrounds. And in order for you to have a successful transplant and to have, the greater success of surviving, is to have a really good match. And people from the same backgrounds tend to have better matches from people, from the same ethnicity. And unfortunately, if you are a white person and you're looking for a donor, you have a 90% chance of having a really good match, which is incredible. But if you're from an ethnic minority background, that falls to under 40%. And I know more than anything that this was the case, because I remember sat in hospital one day after 9 months of being on the international register and not finding a close match, when my friend literally in the bed opposite me, she was a white girl, and she'd just been told the next day, she was like, oh, I need a transplant. And we were obviously gutted for her. We were like, oh, this is awful. I don't want somebody else to have to also wait for, you know, a life-saving match and have to rely on a register that clearly, you know, doesn't always serve everybody. And then that next day she got, you know, a knock to her door, and she had 3 10 out of 10 matches on the UK register alone, which is amazing. It's just testament to, like, this register really works when it, you know, when it needs to. The problem is there aren't enough Asian, there aren't enough Black, there aren't enough ethnic minority donors out there, so many people aren't getting that luck that they need. So yeah, just for our community and for anyone who's out there thinking about it, unfortunately, like, it's still around, and it's going to be around, and it's rubbish, and it's affecting everybody. You know, I was someone's daughter, someone's best friend, cousin, and it can happen to anyone's brothers, sisters, uncles, and it just breaks my heart to know that I was that 17-year-old waiting, thinking, oh, you know, my community clearly don't want me to live, or am I not important? And we don't want people to feel like that. Like, we have the powers within us. How incredible was it to say, oh, you know what I did? I donated stem cells and I saved someone's life. Like, I gave somebody the chance to, you know, make it to university or go travel the world, or I don't know, just the simple things. All I wanted to do was sit on the sofa and eat Nutella on toast and watch Friends. And, you know, I've been able to do that. And somebody else out there, you know, when we take all these things for, you know, for granted. You love shopping. How amazing is it to be like, oh, I can give that girl a chance to just go shopping and not have to worry about her health for 1 minute. So I'm sorry I've rambled on, but yeah, the message is, if people are thinking about it, please sign up.
Yeah. Anie, it's been a pleasure to meet you, and I would urge everyone to join the Anthony Nolan register. You might just save a life, like Anie's.